Watch what happens when I play the Coltrane substitution over the 1-6-2-5 with just triads. A 3-4. Right? And now when I put chords to that exact sequence, right? That's the Coltrane sequence with the fully extended chords. So now you're playing that layer over the blues, right? So this is the layers of the blues. Coltrane straight up intersects. One of my early mentors, the legendary Bob Thompson, said something that's really been resonating lately. And it's that you can't truly understand the jazz until you understand the blues. And that's the fact. Think about it like this. If improvisational mastery is the goal, you can use jazz to reach that level of proficiency as a musician. But jazz presupposes blues. Now here's the kicker. Most people don't know what the actual blues is. And when I say complex blues, what does that mean to you exactly?
I guess complex blues to me would be a blues that uses chords like that are getting away from like the 1-4 and the 5 and like using substitutions for some of those changes that are like classic in a 12-bar blues. Yeah.
Got it. That's actually perfect, dude. Great description. John Michael, how would you describe it?
They tend to use functional harmony and then add some of your outside chords like your secondary dominants and tritone substitutions, and then, you know, that's about as far as I've thought of blues.
Good. This form is the most ubiquitous blues form, period, across all styles, you know, gospel, R&B, jazz, rock. You're going to see that this is the base logic of blues. From there, you do have different extrapolations. For example, they have bird blues. They also have 16-bar blues. But everything should be referenced to this. And that's just based on my experience doing what I've done. This is what everyone is thinking of when they play the blues. And the most specific way to really drive that point home is if you call a blues at a jam session, the house band will be referring to this. So in this video, I'm going to ingrain for you in your ears by just watching and listening to what I'm about to do. You will understand the blues all the way, unequivocally. Now, some of you may already understand exactly what I'm about to show. For many of you, I doubt that's the case. So pay attention here. This one's about to cut real deep. First thing we'll do to ingrain the sound of the blues in our ear is hear the chords against a common tone melody. Like this, the 1 chord with the 1 on top. The 1 chord, but now it's a secondary dominant going to the 4 chord, but still the 1 on top. The 4 chord with the 1 on top. The 4 chord with the 1 of the key. So I'm saying the 1 of the key is on top of every single chord I'm playing. That's the melodic pivot, right? So what comes after the 4 chord? Well, it's the passing sharp 4 diminished chord, of course. Where we go now? Back to the 1 chord, obviously. Notice the quality of the 1 chord. Obviously a dominant 7 with a natural 13. But now when I go to the 4 chord in bar 5, flat 13, that pulls me to the 4 chord. That's bar 5, the 4 chord. So there's a macrocosm of that first microcosm in bar 1 to 2. And right there, that same harmonic progression extends in bar 3 and 4. And bar 5 is the same as bar 2, right? All of these chords are fundamentally crucial. I know a lot of you already know this, but for all the rest of you who don't know this, this is key. This video, this lesson that I'm showing you, this is extremely important, because if you don't understand what I'm showing you now, you'll never really hear the flavor of real jazz. You got to hear this flavor. That's why the point of this video is ingraining this in your ear. Don't even worry about the theory right now. Just listen to the ingraining. Let's recap what we have so far. We're going to play from measure 1 all the way to measure 5, pivoting off the 1 of the key on every chord. There's that 1 chord. There's that secondary dominant where it's the 1 chord going to the 4 chord. There's the 4 chord. There's the sharp 4 diminished. Right? Back to the 1 chord. Right? Now this is bar 3. That 1 chord is bar 3. Look at bar 4. Listen to the difference. Put this in time, it starts to make sense. Right? Inner movement pivoting on the top with the melody. And that takes us to bar 5 right there. Look.
So whole measure of B flat, whole measure of B diminished, back home, whole measure of F713 in third inversion with 1 on top. Here's where it cuts open, turnaround. I'll put that in context. Listen, bar 5. That was bar 9. I'm pivoting off of the 1 still. So that's a voicing I can use. G minor 7 with F on top. What's that next chord? Now you'll see it says C7 sharp 9 on the chart that I know I'm showing you right now. But what's that? That's not a C7 sharp 9. That's a C7 sus, because I'm pivoting off the melody. So when you get to the 5 chord, in this case the C7, you're pivoting off the 1. That's the 4th of the key, so it has to be a sus chord. So that sharp 9 is a very conventional chord to play in bar 10. But if you're pivoting off the melody, well, you're gonna have to adjust that voicing. So there's where theory gets a little complex. Don't worry about that, don't trip on that. What matters is you actually hear the real blues right now. Now, I'm gonna dig it 1 notch deeper because that's just what you gotta do right now. Now that you hear this movement, bar 7, 8, 9, 10. Bar 7, that's bar 11. Right? So it's that turnaround now starting at a different part of the phrase. And with a harmonic rhythm that moves twice as fast. So hear that right there. So here's your first level Coltrane example. Now you might think this is about to fry your brain, but I can tell you this is going to be very easy to understand. And guess what? We got to use the triads. That's why it's going to be easy to understand. So now you're already like,
well, what about all those other chords? Were those triads?
No, my brother, they were not triads, but my melodies will be. We have a different mentality for melody than we do for chords. The chords generally involve all 7 notes of a given scale, so we need to find out what those chord scales are, but I just call them fully extended chords. I don't use the term chord scales, but that is technically what I'm referring to. I think of fully extended chords. So when I see an F7, like on beat 1 of the blues, and I'm playing this voicing in F713, my fully extended chord is 1, 9, 3, sharp 11, 5, 13, flat 7. The only reason that confuses you is because you're trying to understand it. It doesn't matter. I'm just telling you that there's an underlying mechanism for the voicing system, but that's not what you're thinking about in performance. That's not what I'm thinking about when I'm making these demonstrations, but it is the underlying theory. And a lot of you like to know the underlying theory. Although I'll say it's not particularly helpful. That's why only thing that matters right now is your ear. So you can hear some of those fully extended F13 sharp 11 voicings. Right, that's this scale. See what I'm saying? It goes deep there, but those are the sounds. And you're like,
man, well, what is the blues scale there? That kind of sounds like Alan Holdsworth.
For sure. That's all the levels of that F7 right there. I'm trying to put that in your ear, and now it's like, whoa, that's really complex. Right, exactly. That's where we go back to the triads, right? For melody, we're only just going to think about these freaking triads. Once we have the triadic foundation in our ear, then it makes sense to look at some of these fully extended chords melodically. But we can start by just understanding the triad and hearing the triadic aspect, which is very different than... So let's try that right from the top. Right, that's that basic sound. And I want you to notice that I'm not trying to be particularly creative. I'm just using these basic building blocks, and you're hearing the full deep levels of harmony on that when I play the triad melodically with the extended notes on the chord voicings, that sound. Where that triad is giving context to this shape here, which is a third inversion F713, right? Like, how do you place that on an F? Well, you play a triad against it. Right, that's the name of the game that we're talking about when I say assembling pieces. We've got a whole chord mastery system. But that was all a tangent. Actually, this is the point I'm trying to get to, the Coltrane superimposition. That's what I've had in my head and just been circling around to it. Here's the big punchline of the video. Watch what happens when I play the Coltrane substitution over the 1-6-2-5 with just triads. A 3, 4. Right? You hear it that way. And now when I put chords to that exact sequence, right? That's the Coltrane sequence with the fully extended chords. So now you're playing that layer over the blues, right? So this is the layers of the blues. Coltrane straight up intersects. Bach intersects, right? This is all that like Bach stuff. But now do the Bach level through the Coltrane turnaround. Right? Because the big key insight right here is that the Coltrane changes are an exact functional substitution for a standard 1-6-2-5 via tritone substitutions. So a 1-6-2-5 can be substituted as a 1 flat 3, which is a tritone sub away from the 6, then going to a flat 6, which is a tritone sub away from the 2, then going to a flat 2, which is a tritone subs away from the 5. Now that's the type of thing you understand when you complete my roadmap to mastery. As you can see, it's a 5-step system that works like alchemy. Obviously, Coltrane changes are an inevitable part of my method, and now hopefully you can see where they emerge on the learning process. You can start by just learning the basic Coltrane sequence, the 1, flat 3, flat 6, flat 2, and apply that on 1-6-2-5s in the blues. Once you already master all these other fundamental layers of the blues, and now this is exactly why so many people never reach that ultimate jazz fluency, masterful improvisation level. It's because they don't know that that's how deep the blues is. They don't see where Coltrane subs fit on the blues. And obviously for you guys who caught the grading jazz standards like Boulder Problems video, you see that blues is a V3, right? It's a V3. So it's not that hard, but look at it, it actually is really hard. Just like I said, V0 is super hard. If you never played chord changes in your life, it's not easy to play a melody through. Now play a melody and hit those changes. Big point that I'm trying to make in saying all of this is that if you understand that V0 level, that's going to be the exact same thing that you need to be able to get to this point with Coltrane Bach levels. It's the same exact skill. So you can master the skill on V0, and that V0 skill will take you all the way through the elite levels. V10 and beyond. And that's why I charge $275 for one guitar lesson, because I can show you that exact step-by-step process in one singular guitar lesson. I can give you the practice system that you'll take with you for the rest of your life. And that practice system will be responsible for your realization of limitless creative abundance as a guitarist. And that's not to say I don't work with pianists, saxophone players, and trumpet players, and bass players, because all I teach you how to do is become fluent in the language of music. And of course, without fluency in the language of music, you'll never truly master your instrument, and you'll never reach your full potential as a creator. It would be like trying to write novels in a foreign language. Terrible idea. You see what happens when people try to do that. Now, for those of you who want to get the best bang for your buck, just join the school. $444 a month, 3 live classes per week, private lessons, access to the full syllabus, full course library, and the Ultimate Blues Mastery course. Yeah, that's right. I have a course that explains everything that I just talked about in excruciating detail from the base level. And by understanding just my blues mastery course, you'll literally understand theory and chords and melody and chord melodies. So that is for sale right now. I'm actually doing the prototype sale, $97. There's 2 hours of material in that course, just on everything I just showed you, but in excruciating depth and detail. I'll put that as the last link in the description, Ultimate Blues Mastery. And of course, keep looking out for GSM Mastermind. So listen to what we did. We rented an entire campground for our next show. Now, this campground also happens to be a venue with parking. So for this show on October 4th, the GSM Mastermind, you can buy one of those campsites for the night. In addition to your ticket, we're talking $25 tickets with the 20 add-on for the campsite reservation, which includes a parking spot, right? Includes a parking spot, okay? We've got a parking lot at the campground. I rented the entire campground. We have the whole thing. So you see what we're doing. This is the GSM Mastermind. It's the pilgrimage. You guys got to get up there. Send me a message to reserve your spot now. Obviously, prices are going up.